Hello, this is Kevin. I'm going to do another demonstration here. In this one, moving on from Microsoft Word, which is mainly just text-based documents, even though you did add a lot of graphics to them. But its forte is for just text. Moving on to Excel. This program, its main purpose is numbers. Um, Analyze, computate numbers. Okay. So I already got a partially completed what they call a worksheet or a workbook. I'll kind of go over those terms here in a second, but I've already got it open up and into Excel, and I'm going to kind of do this demonstration where it really covers both projects A and B in this week's chapter. Okay, but first I've created what they call a new Excel workbook, and when you create a workbook, it will come. You kind of see the cursor. It will come with one worksheet. And I'm going to use, that's just Excel terminology. Probably the more common term is I'm working with a spreadsheet. But it comes with one, in a workbook, it comes with one worksheet, and you can add many, many more worksheets, and you'll do that in the next chapter. But you'll see when it comes to the layout of Excel, it's going to be similar to Word. We got some new tabs because we're dealing with numbers, so we're going to have a formulas and a data tab. Okay, I'm going to make sure I'm escaped out of everything. We'll have a formulas and a data tab. Okay, so we'll kind of utilize those in time. Not really too much this chapter, but next chapter you'll definitely go to your formulas tab and utilize that. I guess you will in this one too, but not for formulas though. Maybe to change your view. Okay. But I got, those are some new tabs. You still got to have a file, a home. Again, the same thing. That's going to be the most used commands for any type of Excel spreadsheet. Okay, you have your your insert. Okay, inserting some different things because we will definitely come here. We'll insert some charts here. Again, we'll have a review. Okay, got it. Just saying some updates have changed. Okay, and a lot of the same. And if you got Microsoft Teams, you got a Teams tab here too, but a lot of the same stuff. Kind of moving on from there, being on the Home tab, this is going to be new. Mainly, the whole thing we'll really call it the formula bar. There's actually the reference area, or the name box would be better, okay, for referencing cells. But you'll have a formula bar for working with numbers and formulas. We'll talk about that in a bit. Then the main, I guess, area is going to be your actual worksheet. And this is common terminology to all spreadsheets, that spreadsheets are made up of columns, which usually are labeled with letters, okay, and rows, which are labeled with numbers. And where a column and a row intersect, like say if I'm on column E and I'm on row 4, that creates a cell. It's like a little container. It stores stuff. Okay. That's where we put our numbers and text and stuff that we're going to use to build our spreadsheet. Okay. But there's the intersection of a row and column. And when you reference a cell, you reference first its column letter and its row number. Like in this case, we are in E4. Here I'm in G6. Over here I'm in B12. And as you can see, I got a little bit different of a cursor, and this is going to be one of the tough things in Excel because there's a lot of different cursors. Like this cursor, I'll just start off right now. This cursor is going to be this big plus sign. That's how you're going to move what they call the active cell. That's a cell that you've gotten selected and it's ready to have data entered into it. So you can use this cursor to move and choose what your active cell is. You can also, I'm on a full-size keyboard here. It may be a little bit different on those using a laptop, but you can also move what your active cell is by using your arrow keys. Okay. For those laptops with arrow keys, that's probably going to be your preferred method because you guys have to use the touchpad, and that's not as easy as using the mouse to move the active cell. You're probably going to want to use your arrow keys. That's just one cursor. We're going to see several other cursors as we work in this spreadsheet. But that's your active cell. Um, and truly, what you're really looking at, Excel is very, very powerful. I mean, probably the most, well, between it and Access, kind of a toss-up which one's the most powerful program. But you're actually really only seeing a small portion of this one worksheet. I'm just going to zoom out here just a little bit. You'll be able to see. And it gives you the exact number of total cells. I keep thinking it's somewhere, um, it's somewhere into, like, I don't know, I'm just going to take a stab at it. I could be wrong. Like there's over 16 million cells in one worksheet, and you can have multiple worksheets in one workbook. I think when it comes to Excel, it's what limits it is really just sheer file size, and that goes way into the gigabytes of data. So it's very powerful. It can hold a lot of data, and you kind of got to watch your scroll bars, because I did see some people get lost to where, they kind of, as I move away from, use my arrow keys to move my active cell, you can see it kind of can really move quite a distance away from my actual data. And you can see these lines here. Mine's actually showing some lines. It's actually showing, I got my layout set in landscape, my page layout. So kind of shows you where each page is going to be. But as you see, I can move quite a ways, and sometimes they think they've lost their spreadsheet. It's just they've gotten their active cells clear way away from where they originally are working with their data. So watch your scroll bars, both your horizontal, and do the same thing vertical too. Okay, so watch that. You didn't lose your data, you probably just scrolled away from it. Okay, all right. So I've already got this partially completed, and that's where they're going to kind of show you. They're going to, this chapter, take the time to get kind of used to this. And I got some things out of adjustment here, but because I've already changed some stuff. They're going to show you just simply how to enter in data, because when you have a cell selected, there's only three types of things you can put into it. Either it's going to be number one, you can put in a number. You can put in text, and text is usually used to describe the numbers in your spreadsheet, and calculations or formulas used to analyze or work with your numbers in your spreadsheet. So just one of three things can go into a cell. So the first type of data in, we're just going to enter in some numbers, and this is going to be the core of your worksheet, your spreadsheet, and it all depends on how you like to type them in, and really how you can utilize your keyboard to best do it. Okay, it all depends on how you want to enter in the data, and then enter that data into the cell, and then move to the next cell to enter in more numbers or text. Like if I'm going to be, I made my active cell here E4, and I'm going to try to fill out this data in a column, like going from top to bottom. I'll type out the number, and when you type out numbers, all you type in, like I'm going to type in 84,000 or 846,000. You see 634. I'm just kind of looking at my numbers here. 0.12. So you only want to type in the number and any decimal. Okay, you don't want to type in commas or dollar signs or anything of that nature. Excel's gotten real good, but in the past, and I still don't quite trust it, and I have seen it to where you don't want to, if Excel sees anything it can't recognize as a number, it's going to treat it as text, and that will throw off your calculations. And it's just inefficient anyhow, because we got all these neat tools up here to add our formatting. And a lot of these spreadsheets you're going to be working with is going to be dealing with money, even though that's not the only thing you can do. You can do all sorts of, there's all different types of number analysts, calculations you can do. So it's not all with money, but it's easier to put those formats on afterwards. Okay, now as you can see, I got this number typed in, but I do not have it accepted into the cell. Okay, Now I could come up here, and I'll talk about this in the book. I could come up here and to the left of my formula bar, I got a check mark to where I can enter it in, and that'll accept it, and it'll keep it right where it's at, or I can cancel out what I did. Or anything, if you did something accident, well, I'll kind of maybe show you an example, but you always got your escape key to back out of something in Excel too. Like if you typed over something by accident, you can escape out of it. Um, but you can also use your keyboard to do it. If I want to go in a column fashion, I type in the number, then I hit the enter key. Okay, I hit the enter key. That will accept the number to that cell, then move my active cell down one. Now if I go back and if I wanted to type this out or enter in data or numbers, I'm going to make this one so it's actually editing it. If I want to go in as a row, like say if I want to enter in this data from an E4, move over to F4, I'd enter it in, then I'd hit the tab key, tab over. That'll go from left to right. I can enter it in a row. Okay, but you noticed there's going to be default alignments when you type in data. And we've got a good example right here. When you type in numbers, it's going to automatically align that to the right of the cell. Now, it'll give you a key that it did accept it, and it recognizes it as a number. You can see right above here, and I've already got it entered in, but it worked the same. I entered this text just to kind of describe or label this column of data. It's the fourth quarter sales, and I've just put in the one for the Northeast. Okay, when you enter in text, non-numeric data is going to automatically align to the left of the cell, be on the left. Okay, right numbers, left text. Okay, again, text is usually just describe your data. Okay, so I'm going to type out this. I'm going to pause this and I'll type out the rest of these numbers in this spreadsheet. Okay, I got them typed in. Excuse me. And when you follow along in the instructions of the book, really double check your numbers, because one little typo here, let me escape out of that, will cascade and throw off your totals throughout your spreadsheet. So double check your totals, and when you see, and we'll kind of go over it again, I'll kind of give you some troubleshooting. When you see that I got one of my formulas isn't coming up to what it should has shown in the book, it's probably because you got a typo. And really it's just a matter of going through your rows. If it's a total at the end of a row, you got to go look through these numbers to see where it's at. You just got to check for typos. You got errors in your data when your totals. Just don't, if a total doesn't work out, just don't type in what the total should be. When I see calculations, I got to see formulas and functions. So don't just type in a number to make it correct. Find your error in your data. It's always somewhere in here in the body. Okay, so I've got all my numbers entered, and I got one more I got to enter some text. I'm going to come up here to A1 just to show you some text and also show another feature or something how this Excel spreadsheet works. So I'll type in my main title for this one, Profit. Okay, and as you can see, as I type this in, you can almost see up here how when I type it in, it's not, this column isn't wide enough to fit all that data in. If I hit the enter key and accept it, it will kind of go over into that next cell. It's going to do that until if I do type in something in this cell, whatever it is, it'll get cut off. Okay, then it's going to have you in this chapter. We're going to go over, we'll do it here in a bit. We'll have to go over how to size both our columns and our rows, but don't be afraid if it goes over, because it'll display until it gets cut off. And I just hit the escape key to get rid of that. That's how I got rid of that data. Okay, is this going to, again, it's going to display inside or bleed over in that other cell until you put something in that cell. And we'll go over and we're going to talk about how to size columns and rows here in a bit. But the next thing is that we've typed in numbers. Okay, we've typed in text. Now we're going to type in a third type, which is our calculations or our formulas. We're going to use functions, which are built-in formulas in Excel. Okay, we're going to do a simple one. Okay, and my reference is going to be where my actual formula is going to be. I'm just going to add up this column of numbers here. Okay, so my reference, my location, I'm going to be in B8. All right, and now when you do calculations, you're not really adding up these numbers. You're just, when you create these formulas, you're telling Excel where the cells are that are involved in my formula. Then Excel goes out and gets the values out of them. Okay. Now the key to do, either use a function or create your own formula, or again your own calculation, to signify that this is not data in your spreadsheet, it is a formula. You always have to start off with the equal symbol. That's like the trigger. That this is what this is going to equal. Okay, you have to start off with that. Now it automatically tells Excel that this is a formula. And now I have to reference, using its column and row headings, the cells are going to be involved. And this is going to be a simple addition. And Excel follows all the algebraic rules, if I can spit it out, in math. You know, powers are evaluated, anything well, first anything in parentheses, then powers, then multiplication, division from left to right, addition, subtraction from left to right. It follows those rules. Okay, so in this case I got a reference. I'm just going to type them in. I'm going to show you how to do it in a different way too. I'm showing you different ways to do these. Okay, so the first cell is going to be this B4. So, and you don't have to type in caps. So my first cell, I'm just going to type in B and 4, and you see it gives you clues. It gives you clues what cell is going to be added to that formula. The next I got to add in my symbol. In this case is simple addition. So I just plus. The next one's going to be B5. You can see how it signifies that cells inside your formula. I'll add another addition because I'm going to add that to B6. I just typed it in. Addition, symbol, and then B7. And then I got all the cells I'm going to have in this formula. That's going to be added all together. Okay. And to accept this formula, it's the same way as if you were going to enter in text or numbers. Depends if my next formula is going to be over in C8, which is going to be, I'm going to hit the tab key. Or you can hit the enter button up here next to the formula bar. But in this case, I'm just going to hit the tab key. And it's going to enter in that formula. It'll give you, it'll tell you if you got errors in it. But give me, I'm on tab, and it's going to enter in that formula, do my total, and move me over to the make C8, or the one right to the right, the active cell. Okay, and I can go back and click on it, and I can see my formula up here. And if I had to edit this or edit anything in Excel, you know, I could click on the cell to make it active, and come up here to the formula bar, and I can click in it, and then, you know, I got my insertion point. Then I can go through and I can delete, backspace out stuff, change, you know, addition to subtraction, you know, whatever I got to do, add parentheses to work with that formula. I could do it there. And the same thing with a number. If I just got a simple number of text, I can come up here and make, like in this case I made C4 the active cell. I can come up here into the formula bar and click, and I can edit the number. Or you can edit the data or formulas right within the cell itself, simply by double clicking on it. If I want to edit this formula, I can double click on it, and then again I can come in here, use my arrow keys to move my insertion point around, and I can backspace and delete stuff out to correct or change the formula. Okay, so that's typing it in. That's one way to reference cells in a formula. I'm going to hit the escape key out of that to back out of it. I'm going to do the same type of calculation, but I'm just going to use the mouse to reference the cells in my formula. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to sum this column. So I'll add the equal symbol to signify that this is a formula. And then I'm going to click on the first cell that I want in my formula. In this case, I'm going to click on C4. See how it adds it, puts that border around it, signifying that I did add it to the formula. I'll do the same mathematical symbol, the addition. Then I'll click on C5. That gets added. Hit the plus symbol, C6, plus symbol. Now click on C7. Okay. Oop, and that was it. That's into my formula. Then again, I just hit the tab key, accepts that formula, and moves over one to the right. All right, so we've done that, and I think I'm gonna have you do this whole entire all four of these columns the same way, but I'm kind of skip ahead to another way to sum up columns and rows, which you're going to do a lot. Actually, I'm even going to come over here and I'm going to click on that cell and make it active. And I want to kind of clear that out of there. So I'm just going to hit the delete key. Clears out that formula. Because it's the exact same formula for all four of these columns. Okay, so there's a feature, and it does more than just copy stuff, but we'll talk about everything it does eventually. But when you have a cell active, you got this little tiny box in the lower right corner. And let me kind of maybe zoom in just a tad. You see it right there? And if you hold your cursor over it, remember I told you you got multiple cursors? Well, here's the second one. Again, this is the cursor to select stuff. Like either move the active cell or I can drag it. I can drag it and select multiple cells. Really just making rectangles. I'm just dragging that cursor, but I gotta make sure I gotta have this big white plus symbol, say if I wanted to select all of this data like that. Okay, got that one. Now come back here to this cell. I want to use what they call the fill handle, and I can copy this formula. But if I hold it over, you gotta have that cursor, because if I just move it just slightly off, you can see it changes. That's even a different one. That's a different one. That's for moving stuff. If you get that cursor, you're moving stuff. Like I just move that cell where that formula is located at. That's a four-headed arrow. I want to move it back. But that's for selecting. That's for moving. This is for using the fill handle. And what it's going to do, this is going to be my source cell. And I'm going to copy that formula. Defaultly, if you're using it and the cell contains a formula, it's going to copy the formula. I can use that to drag it over the cells that I want to copy in my source to these destination cells. It's going to be in C8, D8, and E8. So if I click on this one, that cell has a formula. If I grab the fill handle, what it's going to do with the formula, I'm going to click, I'm going to start dragging to the right. You can see how it kind of puts a border around the cells. Now I got two of them. Now I got three of them selected. I'm still holding down my left mouse button. With that fill handle cursor, it's going to copy that formula over to those other cells or across this row to sum up these columns. And it's going to automatically, in this case, let me see if I copy it across columns, it's going to automatically update my column reference. Okay, like this one's B4 plus B5 plus B7. Well, now this one, it automatically says it's C4 plus C5 plus C6 plus C7. It can automatically update those column referencing in your formula. Okay, so that's just a quick and easy way. Just only got to do it once. If it's going to be the same, just do the one formula. If it's correct, I can just grab that fill handle, make sure you got the fill handle, and drag it across. And there you go. Okay, so and you can do the same thing for the rows also. Same technique. Okay, I'm going to kind of clear them up because you're going to be summing up rows and columns a lot. Just one of those things in spreadsheets. Okay, and that's why they've kind of added this one. It's kind of a built-in. It's been around forever. It's the auto sum. And what it's going to do is actually it's going to insert a function for you. It's going to insert the sum function. In next chapter we'll go over more detail what functions are, but you can say functions are built-in formulas that you just got to supply the data to the function in order to do its calculation. Okay, the auto sum is kind of a smart feature in that it's going to insert the sum function and it's going to automatically look for the range of cells that you want to add together. In this case, since I'm clicked here, I want to add the range of cells between B4 and B7. So this is my range, B4 to B7. I want to sum up that range. And there's different ways you can get this sum function to work, and they're going to show you various ways. They're actually going to show you that auto sum feature from that pop-up right here. Well, I kind of had it when I have that. They'll show you how to utilize that, but I kind of like it. I'm just going to make the active cell where I want my function to be inserted. So I'll put mine in B8, and I think this works the easiest. That's where I want to put it. So I'll come up here and I'll click right on the name because it does other things besides this sum, average, count, min, max. I just want to use the auto sum, so I'm going to click right on the name auto sum. inserts the sum function with the equal symbol and automatically finds that range. Okay, if it's the correct range, all you gotta do is just enter it into the cell. Okay, so I can just hit the tab key, does the same thing. Okay, let me kind of undo that. Again, another way you can do it, and click on the auto sum. If it finds it the right range, I think it's going to look defaultly to the left and then up for a range. Like it's looking for either a row or a column of numbers is what it's going to look like. Okay, and if I got the right range, I can click on the auto sum button again, and it will enter in the function, do its calculation, and really keep your current cell right where it's located. Okay, now delete now. You don't have to have it right underneath a column or row, because I'll click down here in F16 because it's going to have a hard time finding a row or column down here, but I can still utilize it. Okay, I'll click the auto sum, and as you can see, it didn't find that range. I really kind of want to do the same thing. I want it to sum up this range from between B4 and B7. So if it doesn't find the right range, I'm going to show you another example of this. All you got to do is just, as long as this cell is still in edit mode, okay, that cursor still blinking in it, I can take this cursor, the big plus symbol, and I can select what I want it to sum up. Like say, I can just go ahead and just drag over. I'll click on B4 and drag down till I have B7 selected, that whole range selected, and let go, and it fills in that range for me. Then I'm going to set the enter key and it accepts it. Okay, so it's really quick when you want to use the auto sum. You always got to make sure it finds the correct range. So again, I can just do the auto sum once. It's going to be the same function across this column or across these other columns. So once I have it once, I can grab that fill handle. That's my source. These are my destination cells. I can copy them over. It can be that quick. Okay, and you can do it for rows too. I want my auto sum to insert a sum function in F4, and I want to sum up this row of numbers. So I'll click it once. Found the right range. Click it again. Let's do it again. I'm going to sum up that row 5, the southeast. Click the auto sum. Found the right range. It worked. Okay, now watch this one though. I want to sum up this row. And that's where I could be wrong. Maybe it does look up first. Because if I got it's going to, if I got it here and it tries to find a range automatically, I can either find a range now, either to the left, or it can go up. So if I click this, I want it to go to the left and sum up the Midwest numbers. So I'll click the auto sum and it went up. So it didn't find the correct range, but it's not an issue. Again, I can take my cursor and drag across the correct range, which in this case I'm going to click on B6 and drag till I have C6, D6, and E6 selected. Automatically corrects it. Hit the enter key, and I got it. But of course, I could have done this. Did the auto sum, and then since it's the same to the rest of the rows and actually going to do a grand total, I can use my fill handle. Again, I'll redo it. Let me undo it here. Undo. I'll get rid of these two because it makes it clear. This is going to be my source, and if if it contains a formula function, the fill handle is going to defaultly copy it. Copy it across the range you select. But you got to make sure I got to have that dark little small plus symbol before I click down with my left mouse button. Then I drag it. This F4 becomes my source. F5 is my destination. So is F6, F7, and F8. And there we go. And now we got our calculations done in this spreadsheet anyhow. I guess we do got one other calculation, but we're going to do that one later, the percent of total sales. But I think we're going to do we've done some numeric analysis. I guess we're going to format it. We're going to format our spreadsheet. The first thing we're going to do is kind of work with these. This title, it's an A1, and this subtitle, which is an A2. And I kind of want to have those titles centered right over the middle of my spreadsheet. So what I need to do that is first I need to really make A1 through H1 one big cell. So I'm going to be merging them together. I'll merge them together and then I'll center align it. And since you do that a lot for titles and stuff like that, they do have a up here on the home tab in the alignment group, they have a merge and center. There's some other options, but if you click right on it, it's going to do a merge the cell together and apply center alignment, because in the cells in Excel, you're going to have both your horizontal alignments, which are going to be aligned left, center, right, but also you're going to have vertical, which are going to be top, middle, and bottom. So you got more alignments than what you did in Word. So to do this, and you can only really do it one row at a time. You can't do 2 rows at a time. I'm going to select the range from A1 through H1. That's what I want to make in one big cell, and then I want to center align it. So I have that range selected. Then I click on Merge and Center. Okay. I can't do, you can see what it's going to look like if I try to do 2 rows at the same time. It's going to make that one big cell and center align it, and see it even gives me an error. Okay. So you can only do 1 row at a time. So I'll select that top row all the way over from A to H, merge and center, and I'll copy the next row down, not copy, sorry, select, and do a merge and center. They're going to be right. No matter how I kind of really size these columns or rows, it's going to keep it right in the middle of my spreadsheet. Okay, now I'm going to kind of just format the text. Okay, and we had word styles, but in here in Excel and up here in the styles group on the home tab, we're going to have cell styles, either for numbers or text. And in this case, this one, I'm going to have this going to be set to the thing. Again, it's going to make a combination of fonts and font sizes and colors and stuff like that, which you can change. In this case, I'm going to choose the title cell style under titles and headings. I'll do that for that one. See how it formats it, and I'll click on. And really, even though I merge these, like when I click on this cell, that whole row that I merge and center, since I started off with A1, A1 becomes one big cell. So when you see I click on it, and over here in the name box, I'm in A1. Now this one, since I started out in B2, or sorry, it's going to be an A2, sorry, it's going to become one big A2 cell. Okay, A2. So I click on that one. I'm going to go back up to my styles, and let me see. I think I'm going to do a heading 1 for that one, or maybe a heading 2. I'll do a heading 2. As you can see, that formats the text and also puts a border on that cell. Okay. For these, I'm going to kind of put another subheading style, but I'm going to apply it at the same time. So I'm actually going to be, like I said, you can use this cursor to select a range of cells, and then I can select that range of cells, and I could apply formats to them. These are all these cells are in consecutive order. But they're going to show you how to select non-adjacent ranges of cells and apply formats. It's kind of like when you selected those headings. I think that was in, it was a project 11B, or it might have been 12B. Maybe it was 12B. You select the headings. They're by using the control key. We can do the same thing in Excel, but not either. You can really I can click this cell right here like an E4, then hold on my control key, and then I can select B4, or sorry, let me do that again. I selected E6, and then I can hold on the control key, and I can select B4. So you can use your control key to select non-adjacent items, either by just individual cells, and I can add more just by holding down the control key, or ranges. So I can select this first range. So I'm going to apply the same heading format to the range of B3 through H3, and I'm going to do the same at the same time. Apply it to A4 through A8. So first I'll select my first range. Again, I'm using this cursor to select those cells, just dragging over them. Okay. Then I'll hold down my control key on my keyboard and then drag across A4 through A8. And they're both selected now. So now I'm going to go up to my cell styles and I'm going to choose, I think I'm going to put heading 3. Well, let me see. I think I'm just going to put heading 4 on those. Heading 4. That's what I want. It applies the formats to them at the same time. All right, there's some text formats. Now, of course, we're going to apply some numeric formats. And you really, when it comes, even though we're dealing with money, and I'll kind of add them. If I try to, in this one, you can see I got some number formats right here. Right now it's just on general, but if I drop this list down, we got all sorts of numbers, currency, accounting, dates, percentages. And they got some of the most used ones right out here where you got your accounting, which is, adds a dollar symbol and a comma for thousands, and also we'll take it out to 2 decimal places. Now there's really an accounting, and there's actual currency. With accounting, I'll click on that. It's going to have the dollar symbol stay to the left side of the cell. What's really different between that and currency, the actual currency, I'll select that. The dollar symbol will stay right next to the number and will kind of move as the number grows. But as you can see with either currency or accounting, I think they're going to have you mainly use accounting. You can see how kind of busy it is. It's actually hard to read if you apply currency to everything. So truly, you're only going to apply enough of this format just to signify to the user that you are dealing with numbers. Okay, or sorry, dealing with currency. Okay, so I'm going to take that away. Well, I'll undo it, I guess. Probably the best way to do it. I'll undo it. There we go. All right, so I'm just going to apply the currency to the top row and the bottom row. Okay, so I'll highlight that first row of numbers for Northeast, and I'll highlight the bottom row. Again, I'll hold on my control key. So it's got 2 non-adjacent ranges of cells, and I'll apply the accounting to those cells. Okay, and in the middle, I do want to show thousands, so I'm going to highlight that range in the middle, and I'm just going to apply the comma format. We'll put a comma for thousandths and round it out to 2 decimal places. Okay, so I got my formats on. I am going to do add some cell styles to this bottom row though first. I'm going to highlight the range of B8 through F8. And then I'm going to apply the cell style. I got one for a total row. It's called total. And what it does, it mainly just puts these borders that kind of show you that signifies that it is the total. Okay, so we got those. And I think that's pretty good. I think the next thing I'm going to do, we still got maybe some other formats as we do them, but we're going to do, and this will be one of the easiest things. It's the only hardest part is just to know what to select. We're going to do some graphical representation of our data in creating charts. Okay, charts. And then I think they mainly just do it in A. They're just going to have you show you, there's different charts. They're all on your insert tab, going to be bar and column charts, pie charts. They're all meant for different types of data and how you want it to analyze the data. They will discuss charts in quite detail in this chapter, but we're going to do a bar chart. Okay, going to do a bar chart, and a bar chart is good for multiple columns and rows of data. And we're going to have it really represent, you could just have it represent a column out of your spreadsheet or a row. We're going to have it really represent all this data. Okay. Now, one thing with a bar chart, you'll do a bar chart and a pie chart in a later chapter. The bar chart, the bars in them will total your data. It will show the totals. Okay. So with this chart, we don't need to select any of the total information in the spreadsheet because the chart itself will do the totals. Okay. We just really need this core set of numbers. We don't need the row totals. We don't need the column totals. Again, the chart will do the totals. But besides that, and it's easy to do it now, we need those to actually represent the bars in the chart. But there's also what's going to have, there's going to be legends and data labels that help describe this data in this chart. So we also need to select these column and row headings, not these ones out here, these ones out here. This will give better representation of the data in our chart. So really for this chart we're going to create, I'm going to start off, and the only way I can get them both if I start here on A3 and I'll drag down to A7 and then I'll drag across all the way to column E, or in this case to E7, to where I have the numbers that I want and I have both their column and row headings for this chart. So I pre-select my data before I start the chart. And when you go to Insert tab on the ribbon, actually Excel has this, and they'll have you use this, they'll have a recommended chart. Well, they'll give you, I'll just go ahead and click it. They'll give you options, what they think it's best for your particular chart. They're going to pick out the ones by what you have selected. Okay, and they're going to have you pick out one of these. They're going to really either one of these top two. We're going to use a clustered column, just like the same one you do in this chapter. So I'll select that in my list, and I'll say OK. And you can see, I've got to kind of zoom out just a little bit here so we can see. This chart's a graphic, and it's really kind of floating right on your worksheet. So if you got that four-headed arrow, and I always kind of go by the border. And as you can see, when I got this chart selected, I got, again, a couple of different tabs just to work with the chart. But I'm going to come down here. I'm going to drag it. I'm just going to put it right below my data. And then, you got sizing handles. And this will kind of, how big you make it will also increase what it displays. So I'm going to grab this bottom, which kind of does proportionally, and I'll drag it so it's all the way across my worksheet like that. Okay. And see, I got it selected, and in here you can see because I selected that data, the column headings became data labels or the series labels for each group of bars, and the bars represent, again, this is for first quarter, so it's representing, in this case, this quarter one is representing this data right through here. That's the series for quarter one. That's what that's representing. That becomes the series data label, and down here the legend, it tells you what each bar is representing. That's really representing the rows. Your legend's representing your rows, what color each bar means. And you can click on them, they'll show you in your chart. Those can your row data, and the series itself becomes your column data, the series at quarter one. Okay, and you can flip-flop that. Okay, if I got my chart selected, say if I want to flip-flop that and make the quarters the legend and the row headings the series, if I click on my chart, I'm going to make sure I just want my chart. I kind of click away from everything. So make sure I just got everything selected here. If I go to right here, it's on chart data. There's two different tabs for charts, formatting and chart design. I can switch my row columns. If I click that, you can see now my series is going to be my row headings and my legend is going to be my quarters or my column headings. So you can switch it around. So they'll have you do that, and also they got these nice chart styles where it just picks out colors and shapes for your different elements in your chart. They'll tell you a specific one. Okay, I'm just going to kind of use this style 14. I'll use that one for mine. And they'll also have a title that you can add. It kind of gives a generic one, but it's like this really like a little text box in there that you can click on. Then I'll click on it again. I'll get my insertion point in there, and I can edit my chart. Let's say I'm not sure. They'll tell you specifically. I'll just put quarter totals for my label. Okay, and that's really it. Okay, if you truly like, say if you selected by mistake, like let's say you forgot to select that first column, so you don't have the data labels for the rows, and you've already created a chart. Really, when it comes to that, instead of trying to fix this chart, it's they're so easy to make. It's really just, if I select the chart and make sure I just have the chart and none of the inside components selected, I can hit my delete key and get rid of it. Then I can go and select the right amount or the correct range of cells and just go back and remake it, because it's just that simple. Drag it, and oop, I didn't want to do that. Remember, grab the border, drag it to where you want it, resize it. It's easier to do it that way. Okay, I can really change my title again. I got the cut it. I can spell. There we go. All right, now I think I switched my columns and rows. There we go. All right, that's how easy that can be done. Next thing we're gonna do another calculation and kind of go over relative and absolute cell addressing. Okay, now this percent of totals, we got to know this. You're going to be doing it. I think you do this in 15B, but also this is going to be one formula you're going to be doing on the final. Okay, same exact formula. All right, so in this one, I want to do percent of total. This is my total. You can almost think like this is the size of my overall pie. And each one of these values make up that total. So each one of these is a percent of the overall total, or what size slice of, how big of a slice of the overall pie. Okay, so that's what this calculation is going to be. So what we have to do is take each one of these row totals and divide them by the overall total for all the figures. Okay, so each one of these has to be divided by the total. Okay, so that's going to be our own custom calculation. So I'm going to click in G4. That's where my formula is going to be located. That's the reference cell. I'll hit the equal to start off my formula. I think I already got some formats on this, but I think we'll be okay. Okay, so I'll make that the equal. I'll click on, I'm going to divide F4. Okay, and when you do division, it doesn't make a huge difference. I always use the /. If you want to make sure, just use the slash key that's on your numeric keyboard, because you do have or it's above, on my keyboard it's above my function key too, but it's the slash that kind of goes from left to right, up. It kind of leans that way, it leans to the right. That's your /. So I'm going to take F4 and I'm going to divide it by the overall total down here. So I'm going to click on F8, and that's my calculation. And I should probably show you, I get the format, sorry about this. Let me get rid of the formats I got on this column. I'll send them back to normal. See, because it's going to give you a decimal. I've already had formats applied to it, so it gives you that decimal. Okay, so that's going to be the same for these other rows here. So I'm going to try. They'll have you do this. They'll have you grab that fill handle. Make sure you get that cursor there. That's the cursor for the fill handle. Grab it and drag it down. But it gives me these errors, division by 0. And it all has to do with the type of cell addressing. By default, when you copy stuff, it does relative cell addressing. And really how to explain it and how I was able to successfully copy these column and these row totals was the way, really how Excel does things. Okay, so when I did the summation here, it's really kind of, can think of this spreadsheet as a coordinates, map coordinates. It's just locations. You can think of it that way. Okay. When I did this total and I put it down here in B8, that's the location relative to the other things that's going to be in my formula. What I total when I did that summation is go to the cell that's 1, 2, 3, 4 above it, and then add that to the cell that's 1, 2, 3 above it, and add that to the cell that's 1, 2 above where the formula is located, and add that to the cell that's 1 above where the formula is located. So when I did that and when I copied it, it just did the same thing. When I copied it over from this destination to this source cell with that fill handle, it did the same thing. It went 1, 2, 3, 4 above it, and added to that to the cell that's 1, 2, 3 above it, to the cell that's 1, 2 above it, to the cell that's 1 above the location of my formula in C8. That's how I did it. And the same thing works for my rows. You know, go to the cell that's 1, 2, 3, 4 to the left. Add that to the cell from the location that's 1, 2, 3 from the location of where I got my formula to the cell that's 1, 2 from the location of my formula to the one that's just 1 over to the location formula. And when I copied it down, it did the same thing across those rows. That's how I was able to do it. So when I did this one, it did exactly what I told it to do when I did the fill handle. In this case, this original formula, I told it to go to the cell that's 1 to the left, and then go and divide that by the cell that's 1 to the left and 1, 2, 3, 4 below it. So then when I copied it here from my destination to my source, it did the same thing. It went to the cell that's 1 to the left, and then divided that by the cell that's 1 to the left and 1, 2, 3, 4, which in this case, sorry, I got to move my chart, 4, which is this blank cell down here. Again, I told it to go 1 to the left and then go to the cell that's 1 to the left and 1, 2, 3, 4, which is an empty cell, and that's why I get the division by 0. So I got to modify my cell referencing up here. Okay. I always want it to go 1 to the left, but I wanted to always absolutely go back and do the division by F8. So I got to change my formula, and the easiest way is to do it as you create the formula. So I'm going to restart this. I'm maybe just going to delete them out of there. Okay. I'm going to click in G4, start off my formula the same way, equal F4 and division with the forward slash. And now I want it to have to absolutely always go back to F8. So I got to change it from relative to absolute cell referencing. I absolutely always want to go back to F8 to do the division. So I'll click on F8, and before I go anywhere, I'll hit, and the easiest way is the function. This is going to be the first time you're probably going to use one of the function keys on your keyboard. I want to tap the F4 key. F4 key on your keyboard. As you can see, that will put a dollar symbol in front of both the column and row headings. Okay. So I'm telling it really to absolutely always go back to column F and to always go back to row 8, which references cell F8. Okay. So the first part is going to be relative, but this second half of this is going to be absolute. Always go back to this cell. So now I'll go ahead and enter it in. Still same calculation, but now when I copy it down, you'll copy down correctly, because they'll always go 1 to the left, but they'll take that and always go back and divide it by F8. You can see how it does it. You can click on these and you can look in your formula bar. F4 to F8, F5 but goes back to F8, F6 but goes back to F8, F7 but it always goes back to F8. Okay. All right. I know this is a long video, but I'm kind of going everything both in A and B in one video. Okay. I'm going over 90% of everything. I'm going to do one more graphic, and they're called under here the trends, and on your insert they're going to be called spark lines. You're going to be doing actually the line spark line. Okay. And this is the way I'm going to do it because I think it's less confusing. Okay. I'm going to put where I want, and these are kind of like graphical charts you embed right into a cell. I got to really kind of drag my bar chart up here so it's back where it was. Okay. I guess one more thing I forgot. Let me go back. Well, I'd never formatted these numbers back. Okay. Because I want to make them I want to make them percent and have them go out to 2 decimal places. So I just got to go to the home tab. I got them all selected because I'm going to apply the same format to all of them. Sorry about this. So I add the percent format. Okay. With that, it defaultly doesn't have any decimals. It doesn't go out. But here, right next to it, I have my increased decimal and my decreased decimal. I want to increase it till it goes out to 2 decimal places, so I clicked it twice. Okay, now I got it formatted. That was easy. Now I'll go back to the charts. Again, these spark lines, they kind of get embedded right into a cell. Okay, so I'm gonna start it off, and they kind of work with like other data in the cell that I can use my fill handle. So this is the way I kind of like to do it. Okay, so I'm gonna click on H4, that's where I'm going to insert my spark line, and I'm going to base it on data, and it's going to be kind of like this bar chart where make sure you don't select your totals because the length of the line will do your totals. It's going to have data points on it. Okay, so got that selected. I'm going to go to my insert. Then I'm going to come over here to spark lines. I'm going to click right on spark lines. When I click on it, it's going to open up a dialog box. I'll move it over here. Again, that's where I want it to go, the location. It's going to go in H4. I just got to tell it what the data range is going to be. And you can type it in, or if you click this button here, if I click it, it's going to allow me to go out with my cursor and drag over the range. I just want it on these first 4 quarters for northeast. Don't do the total. Don't do the total because the chart itself will do the totaling for you. So I want the range, I want it based on B4 to E4. So once I've drug over the range, I'll click that button again. It takes me back to the full dialog box. That's the range I'm basing it on, and that's where I want the chart to go. I'll click it, and there you go. Okay, and it's got sparkline so I can format it. They're going to have you do that. But what's kind of cool about this, once I have one in there, I can grab that fill handle, and I can copy that chart down just like I can a formula. Okay. I can do that. That seems kind of odd. Kind of looks all the same. Let me see something. That doesn't look. Why does that look odd? Let me change. I change my style. Something just doesn't look right on this. They all look like they did choose the total. Let me undo that. Let me try that one more time. Okay. So I'll reinsert it. Line. It's going to go in H4. My data range. Make sure I didn't. Should be just 4th quarter. That looks all right. So I guess I'll just key and continue on. They'll have you put these markers on. They'll show you your actual data points. I should have 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, everything's kind of close here, so they're going to look somewhat similar. And they're going to have you choose colors, but you know, one of the styles, which is really just colors. And then they'll have you add it to all of those. Okay, and I guess they are close in numbers, so they're going to look the same. Maybe if I made it bigger, they'd show the distances and the data points. Okay, all right. So let me see. About the only other thing I got to do, and this is one thing I probably should have done earlier. They're going to have you size these columns. Okay, easiest way to size columns is to hold your cursor in between any of these columns. Like here, I'm in between A and B, and I get that double-headed arrow like that. If I click and hold, then I can just drag. Okay, and you can see it kind of gives you both a one in 2 different values. Okay, one in 10.29. Also, they give you pixels. I'm pretty sure when they tell you in the books, they're going to go by the pixels. So watch the number of pixels you widen your columns by. Okay, and if you ever see this, I'm just going to drag this one to make this column too small. Kind of go a little bit farther. See how I get these pound signs? That's not an error. That just means that the data this column is not wide enough to show both your numbers with their formats. It's not an error in your calculation. Okay. Now, one thing I like to do is if I hold my cursor, I want to resize column B. But if I hold my cursor in between B and C and then double click, it does an auto size. It sizes it to the widest item in that column. You can really, and you can do them at the same time. If I can highlight all these columns here and do a double click in between any of them, it auto sizes them all at the same time. Okay, so that's pretty much. I'm just going to make sure I save my updates. I probably should have done that quite a while ago. And they'll have you do the same thing again with these. You don't have to print them. They're going to go over printing though. They will go over printing. Oh, there will be one more thing I do got to show you. They'll go over printing, and also when you go to File and Info, you'll be changing the properties. This one already has some added. And also, and I really don't need this view, but they're going to show you to where I can change the view from, this is kind of the normal view, to my formulas view. I think if you go to, let me see, the formulas tab, there's a couple ways you can do this right here. If you go to formulas, and right here you can click show formulas. That shows your formulas instead of the actual result of the formulas. So they'll have you go into that view. You don't need to set this or give me this view because I'm just going to download your spreadsheet and go in the formula view to look at your formulas. So you don't need to do that. And kind of when you do it, sometimes it messes with your range. So you can just kind of toggle back and forth. Or not with your range, but kind of sometimes with your sizing. Okay, so I think that is pretty much it. So again, before you upload it to your Dropbox, just make sure you save it. You don't have to print it. Again, no PDFs. Just send me the Excel. I need the Excel spreadsheet, please. Okay? Contact me with any questions on Excel.